Hi there. Today's review is the latest book by Andy McNab, who is, of course, renowned for his books, which were autobiographical military histories of his time in the SAS, which were bestsellers, number one. And he also wrote a number and continues to write a number of thrillers. Um, some of which were really good. For example, Dark Winter, I thought was very well done. This book, The Hunt, is his first, where it's a military history, but it's not about his own personal experience. He's writing about operations that took place since he left the military himself. Now, the book has had mixed reviews, some very good, but I was surprised to find some that said it was dull and plodding and so on. So it was with some apprehension that I approached it, and I found it was very, very good. I was absorbed by it. I found it interesting. I found he illuminated a lot of things, explained a lot of things really well, and put you right there in the action. He's a good writer, and his book's as good as many of the current books written by military historians or military writers writing about the current conflicts. But he's got the bonus of his previous background in special forces. The book covers the SBS in Afghanistan, mainly through the eyes of the main character, Jay. Now, there is a non-disclosure policy that all special forces soldiers have to sign upon passing selection. Well, they won't disclose either in written or in interviews anything that they've gained in their military service with special forces. So any books or any accounts since that disclosure came into effect really have to be done with a big degree of anonymity and a little bit of a risk of legal trouble, as the book Soldier 5, which I've reviewed, ended up in a high court case, which the author won. So the book opens with Jay, who's a sergeant in C Squadron SBS in Afghanistan. And I mentioned in a previous review that SEAL Team 6 or DevGRU were assigned Afghanistan, and likewise the British Maritime Special Force, the SBS, was also allocated to this desert mountainous area, whereas the other wings of the Special Forces, the SAS or Delta, were given Iraq, which has two coastlines and major riverine infrastructure, which I just find strange. So his first tour in Afghanistan, he was a sergeant. Certain amount of action takes place, and then the story really gathers momentum on a subsequent tour in 2007 into Helmand, where C Squadron has been deployed, and Jay is now the Squadron Sergeant Major of C Squadron. So he's a well-seasoned senior within the squadron. Now, United States agencies, by some very clever means, which are explained fully and which I found fascinating, the way the technology is used in surveillance. They have tracked a really bad Afghan Taliban leader, Mullah Dadullah, who specializes in torture and beheading people, general atrocities, bombings, as well as attacks on the security forces. He's been tracked to, I'll just find in my notes, to an area called Barham Char. And the SBS squadron is given the capture/kill mission, Operation Tetris, to take him out. Ideally to capture him, because he would be a great source of intelligence, but if all else fails, to kill him. And that's the main focus of this book. The squadron is augmented by a couple of operators from the most shadowy unit of JSOC, which at the time was using a code name of Grey Fox, and also 3 members of the Green Berets, the Special Forces, have been attached, and also the essential support of SFSG, the Special Forces Support Group, which was stood up in the War on Terror, and is a mixture of Marines, paras, and even some RAF personnel. And their job is much like the Rangers' job to support US Tier 1 operations. SFSG supports the UK Tier 1 operations. Andy McNab reproduces almost verbatim a briefing by an officer from the Int Corps, which had the guys virtually spellbound, and these are hard-bitten, cynical operators, and he really does give a fascinating insight into the battle picture that they were facing. I found that particularly interesting. Jay is shown as demonstrating very sound leadership principles in his relationships, his interactions with his colleagues of all ranks, as well as attention to detail. There's a lot of instances in the book where it makes you go, yeah, that's what a true leader should be doing. And Jay comes across as highly competent and a guy who really deserves the job he's got. So Op Tetris has many phases, and what they did was to insert a recce and sniper element first to get eyes on and to feedback information. And Jay was actually part of that element. And after doing that and sending back the relevant information, the main force comes in, the assault teams in a couple of Chinooks, 47s, and a massive firefight erupts, and Andy McNab puts you right in the middle of it. And fanatical, excuse me, you've got to say that the Taliban know how to fight, or these Taliban know how to fight. They're committed. They are the kind of really backbone of the Taliban fighters. And there's one instance where Jay has to approach a building under fire, and he gets the rest of his team to fire into this window or space in a mud brick wall to keep the guy's head down so he can post a grenade through. But the bad guys on the inside have twigged what he's going to do, and hands come out and block the grenade, but he manages to overpower them and post a grenade in, and he's successful. So it shows the commitment of them. Jay also learns a the hard way, a very valuable lesson where he's taken a guy down, put rounds into him, but the guy is wearing a suicide vest, clacks it off, and one of the SBS guys is severely wounded, a femoral bleed, and Jay has to put a cat tourniquet on it, and you get a bit of insight into the medical. But the lesson learned is always to make sure that everyone's dead. And Marcus used to teach this from his his time in the business working for FAM, that the term was safety rounds, that you had to see the brains. Once you could see the brains, then you knew the guy was no longer a threat. So, without giving away all the action, the mission was a total success, and the US, the Pentagon wanted to award medals to the guys from C Squadron, but the Ministry of Defence and the British government, which does not comment or reveal Special Forces operations, declined. So the guys would have had some nice American decorations. As I say, really good book. I enjoyed it. Well written. I found it far from dull. I found it interesting. At no time did I think the pace lagged. Jay, the commanding officer of the squadron, as well, come over as very competent professionals. You've got the usual banter amongst the guys, lots of nicknames, but everybody there is a committed professional. They've all passed selection, and they all want to get on with the job. Really good book.